Joining us now from the Green Light Pod in his usual Monday spot, our friend Chris Long, back here on the Rich Eisen Show, two-time Super Bowl champ. How are you, Christopher?
Rich, how we doing, man?
I'm doing great. What's your headline out of Sunday? What's the headline?
Oh, man. Considering I'm getting ready for the whole show right now, I guess, oh, man, I don't know what the headline would be. I guess the Bills getting in the playoffs, man, and the Dolphins being who we thought they were.
What is that? So what is who you thought they were?
Well, Rich, I know that's how this goes. You gotta turn the question on me, but who'd you think the Dolphins were? Who did why are we still doing this where we're like, I don't know what's been up with them lately. It's been 2 years.
Well, I mean, who the Dolphins, what I think they are is a team with an explosive offense that can get you at any point in time. And,
are they?
Well, that's what they have proven on occasion.
No, they haven't. They every time they get in a game like this, they average probably 19 points. That's probably gone down since last night. And, the performance in the second half, I just don't want to hear about the offense anymore there. I know there were guys hurt and that sort of thing, but the Bills spotted them all these games. Josh spotted them all these dumb decisions in the red zone. And I feel for that defense in Miami because they had started to play really well and they lost some guys and it kind of eventually got too much for them. But if they were going to go on a run, they were going to win games 23-17, 20-17. And that's the thing that I cannot figure out how everybody's gotten this wrong. If they were going to make a run, they were going to do it on defense. And they just lost too many guys. And then last night you see it where they're now Waddle and Mostert. Listen, these are legitimate excuses, but it's not like this is a trend breaker. They get in these situations and they lay eggs. And I think Josh, for as imperfect as he is, I can't believe that we have these conversations sometimes about Josh Allen. Look what he's able to do to dig himself out of that hole. I think when you look up at the Bills in the division, they've quietly owned that division over the past 3-4 years. Miami's trying to be where they're trying to be. Not with that team. I don't see how it changes much next year.
So then who's the team that can knock off the Ravens best? Is it the Bills? Is it somebody now that we know who's in the tournament? Even Houston.
There are two teams that I think can knock the Ravens out. I'm not saying it's likely, but the two teams capable of it are the Browns and the Bills. And for the Dolphins, I mean, it sucks because they're excited. Listen, I know that I've said things about the quarterback that people think, has been hate in the past, but I've just been, as you can see, realistic about the situation. They're a capable, good team if they put it together. And I like the kid under center. You want to see him succeed. I like the head coach. But when you get in these situations and the difference between winning and losing is going to Kansas City or hosting a home playoff game, not to mention the possibility, and I might have butchered this because I was up till 3 a.m. looking at all this stuff last night, but they'd have to visit Cleveland in the offhand chance that they see Cleveland in the second round. If they win that game at Kansas City, they're going to have to go to Cleveland if the situation. So, in no scenario do I feel great about their path, and they had a chance to alter it and just get to maybe they get some of those guys back and they just couldn't do it. And, if you can't take advantage of those turnovers and those gifts, I don't know what to tell you in the special teams thing. It's just disappointing for them. And for the Bills, who I love, this is awesome. America wanted to see the Bills in the postseason. When the Steelers won this weekend, I was like, oh, no. The Steelers are going to keep the Bills out. And as much as I like watching the Steelers play and I like Mike Tomlin and the scrappy job they've done, would you rather see them in the playoffs or the Bills? This is good for the NFL that we now get the Steelers in, we get the Bills in. The NFL's got Dallas, Green Bay, round one. You got Philly in the dance, even though it's kind of a formality at this point. We've got a lot of these big market teams. We've got Detroit and we've got LA playing each other first round. This is going to be great. Yeah,
I think in the AFC, just to wrap it up, on that side of our conversation, you could make the case that the 7 teams that made it, the 7th would be the argument, I would think, are the best teams that the AFC's had all year long. Ravens and Chiefs and Bills and Dolphins and Browns, Texans, right, when Stroud was healthy or is healthy. And then, the 7 seed's kind of a coin flip. I know the Colts did beat the Steelers, but that was when they had Trubisky, and I think they looked like a different team with Mason Rudolph for a reason. In Jacksonville, was the one that complied because they lost. That's how the Bills got in before they even took the field last night in Miami.
And the Jags are headline number 2, right? When you're like, oh yeah, what happened earlier in the day? Oh yeah, it was the Jags just collapsing down the stretch, continuing to collapse. And I think the disappointing thing for Jags fans is when you say you got to be able to run the football late in the year, when you say you got to be able to stop the run late in the year, it's not just because it's cold or because it's cliche or because old football guys are saying it. You got to be able to do those things because look around the league. You're playing a backup quarterback. What do you think they're going to do? I know it's Tannehill, but what do you think they're going to do in Derrick Henry's last game? They're going to get the ball on the perimeter. They're going to use the screen game. They're going to see if your guys outside can tackle. But more than anything, they're going to put the ball behind that Skoronski kid's ass and he's going to do work up there. And you're going to get whatever you want. And that's how it played out defensively for that group. And then offensively, you can't run the ball. You just can't. I mean, they're one of the worst teams in the league running the football. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher more than once, or they haven't had 100 yards as a team more than once since week 10, I think. And it's a design flaw. Like you draft Tank Bigsby in the 3rd round. You don't see a lot of him. You draft Strange in the 2nd round. He had a key hold yesterday. Trevor, I want to make him the headliner because people get so emotional about this quarterback thing. I'm not anti-Trevor. I'm not pro-Trevor. I'm just calling it how I see it. Like, I know he's hurt, but the throws he missed at the end of that game question the decision-making, right, in putting him in that game. And I totally understand his thinking as a competitor, checking to the sneak on 4th and goal and that sort of thing, but he's dinged up. They couldn't run the ball. Their 1st and 2nd down stuff where Tennessee's just stopping the ball or the run with the light box. They're just popping it out on the perimeter and hoping for the best, but their guys outside are coming down and tackling. So I think Tennessee's the more physical team, and the quarterback would have had to play spectacularly with the injuries that they've had at receiver. Zay Jones, it's almost worse for him to be out and then back in and out again. He's been in and out all year. Kirk leaving during a key stretch. It's not all on the QB, but I do look at it like, for a guy that's led the league in turnovers since he's been in the league, like the second one for sure is on him. There were multiple 3rd downs early in the game where you're just like, hey, whether it's the Ingram drop, whether it's him and Zay Jones off target, this has plagued them all year. You bring in Ridley, you got 3 slot guys, right? So it's a design flaw. It's a scheme flaw. You barely play Ridley in the slot. I just feel like they had a bad plan this year, and then the injuries happened and it got even worse. So when you can't run the ball and you can't stop the run at the end of the season, look around the league. There's a ton of backup quarterbacks. There's guys hurt. That's why you have to be able to stop the run and run the ball. It's not some cliche, and they couldn't do it.
Chris Long here from Greenlight Pod on the Rich Eisen Show, as well as Inside the NFL. I feel like we talk about the Eagles and whether they can flip a switch and what's wrong with them every single week. I mean, what a disastrous finish it was to have the Giants just light them up, and then, A.J. Brown grabs his knee. I mean, what a fitting meme for the quarterback of the Eagles to have a middle finger extended, right? I mean, so I don't know what the question is. Are they going to get one and done, do you think, in Tampa?
It's a good chance. I mean, there's a good chance. The only saving grace they have right now is, hey, if you dig deep, you can run the ball. Like if you dig deep and think about it hard, you might be able to run the ball in this group. Like I remember they closed out that Tampa game. Now things are way different this time around, but they closed that Tampa game out with a nice long drive where they just got whatever they wanted. And I can't get that out of my head. But on the other end of things, like I can't get what I saw yesterday out of my head. And I can't get what I've seen the past 4 to 6 weeks out of my head. And boy, they did a number on us, like fooling us into thinking. I think coming into the season, we knew they weren't the same team. I don't know about you guys, but like being a Philly guy and knowing that roster and knowing how it is coming off a Super Bowl, didn't think they were going back, but to be this different than the team we thought they were, which is really impressive to come off of a Super Bowl loss and start the way they started. I don't know if it just the bottom fell out. When you're not accustomed to making these runs, like New England for all those years, I think the most amazing thing that they did, besides just winning them, is going back and going back and going back. Like that process is draining. And now if you're going to be that team that expects to play deep into January, you can't run out of steam. you can't have the injuries you had. You can't have the design flaws you had on defense. And I don't like Baker Mayfield's missing a lot of balls right now. So maybe that's your best shot, but I don't feel confident about them winning at Tampa. No.
And then, I mean, of all the years for the Cowboys to get that 2 seed, to get some home games, it's a year in which I think you can make the case that the 6 and 7 seeds are better than the 5 seed in the NFC playoffs currently going in last 2 months.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, the Packers look really good. I know defensively they were like the cheeseheads, the holes in the cheeseheads up until the last, I guess, 6 quarters of the regular season. But Love is playing. I mean, playing his mind off right now.
Love's great. And, like, I'm not trying to throw the word great around like he's a great player yet, but this stretch has been great. I mean, the way he's taking care of the football.
Right.
I like his maturity. I've always liked his maturity. Anytime you stick a mic in his face, he's saying the right things. He projects the right kind of leadership. And I think the part of that is, and it's a perfect storm when you don't get a lot of guys that sit for a while and learn. The guy on the other sideline, and there's discussion swirling around what they do with him. He's had the opposite experience, like you get a Matt Nagy year, light that thing on fire. Look who he's throwing to year 2. And then look at the game yesterday. Look at the game plan. And I want to give the Packers credit. They sacked him on like 5 of his 22 dropbacks. Like a quarter of the time you drop back, you're getting sacked, and they weren't coverage sacks. So the Packers defense, some of the things they did to mess with the protection, overloading one side, walking Quay Walker up and occupying a guard, like the stuff they did up front, I've really liked their rushers all year long. I haven't liked the design of the defense at times. But when they can win up front like that at home, now they're not going to be playing home games for the most part here, right? At all. They're going to have to go on the road and take this show on the road. But they're solid. They did the same thing to Kansas City they did to Chicago, like force long drives that end up in field goals early in the game, not dominate time possession, but control time possession, run the football with Aaron Jones in there. They look really complete. If the defense can stay out of those situations that make Baker Mayfield look like, all world and all these games that you can pick out that Joe Barry and that defense is kind of underwhelmed. I take them seriously, man. And honestly, talking about the NFC, Dallas getting home games, there is a scenario where they get 3 of them.
Yep.
Right. Because I think the one team that I don't feel great about anybody beating the Niners in the NFC, but I think the Rams can give them a fight. And so let's say there's a situation where the Rams knock them out, then for Dallas fans, it's like, we could go, so I think for Dallas, things fell really well. And for a team a year ago that lost, I think, to Washington by 20 points, you're looking at the Eagles game, and it's easy to think, it's unprecedented to crater like this when you're supposed to be resting your starters. You end up resting your starters the other way. Washington beat Dallas at the end of the season when they had a little something to play for. And so this is a different Dallas team. They went in and handled their business. It would have gotten really ugly if not for that blocked field goal.
Last one for you, Chris Long. The other headline involving two teams that didn't make the playoffs is what happened at the end of the Falcons-Saints game. And Arthur Smith's final public act as Falcons head coach was to air out Dennis Allen for a touchdown attempt that was successful at the end of the game that Allen did not call for. He wanted to take a knee, as Arthur Smith, clearly in the coaching profession, would expect to have happen. And instead, Jameis pulled, I guess, a code red to give a touchdown to Jamal Williams, who didn't score at all this year after signing with the Saints and leading the league in touchdowns last year. I can't wait to hear your take on this, Chris.
Well, nobody died, right? It's a football game.
Yeah.
You threw a pick at the end of the game. You're down there at the 1. I'm not saying it's not a no-no. It is a no-no, right? But I've always been the kind of guy, and I've been down in the Superdome where Sean Payton is kind of running it up on my team. And I'm like, all right, well, we could stop him. Now, I know that's a different situation when you're expecting to kneel down, that sort of thing. But, I understand Arthur Smith being pissed off, right, walking out to midfield. There's a lot going on for him. He just got embarrassed with your lifeline to the playoffs over the last two games, right? Like you get outscored by what you got outscored by. That's the nail in your coffin. So I think he knows that. And for him, I understand why he's pissed, but then like once you hear the Jameis Winston part of it, which was the best soundbite of the weekend, like Jameis Winston went to a class for like presidential public speaking, like put him at the White House podium. It doesn't matter what he says. Like he just says it well, man. He's demonstrative.
Yeah.
He believes it. He's positive. Like his facial expressions. I could watch Jameis Winston talk all day, and that was the most hilarious interview. But when it comes down to it, is the players, right? So you can't be mad at Dennis Allen. But I would contend, though, although it's not Dennis Allen's fault, it kind of is, because I've been on a lot of teams, and I don't know too many that the guys would have been like, yeah, whatever coach is saying, we're not going to do that. Especially, and part of that's immaturity on Jameis's part a little bit, like, but this isn't a cardinal sin. Like, he got caught up in the moment. He's not thinking, what's this do to Dennis Allen, right? Those guys aren't thinking what's going to happen it's hate week at the end of the day still. Like, these teams hate each other. And so I think for Arthur, I understand him getting pissed off. I kind of wonder if it had something to do with how quickly Arthur Blank fired him. Like, Arthur Blank, first off, really patient, right? Like, last guy he fired this quickly was Jim Moore Jr., I think. And he didn't even wait till the next morning. It was like, we're doing it before the kids go to bed. And I don't know if maybe it was the last couple of weeks. I don't know if it was the quarterback mismanagement. I don't know whose call that quarterback stuff was, because it was truly bizarre. I don't know if it's not using Kyle Pitts. I don't know if it's not using Bijan Robinson. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the meltdown at the end of the game, but Arthur was ready to move on from Arthur. And it was very apparent, very quick.
Yeah, I know. It's I guess, more the Jameis thing. I mean, coach says take a knee, and you're like, yeah, we all just, tribal counseled it, like on Survivor, and we just voted the coach off the island, basically is what they did.
It's an indictment on Dennis one way or another, because if Dennis did it, it's Dennis' fault. But if Dennis told them to take a knee and they did something different, it's kind of like, they're not really listening to Dennis, are they?
That's right. That's exactly. And his job is kind of on the line, too. I know they finished 9-8 and they finished strong. He made made some decisions against the Rams on that Thursday night. That's the difference between them now being home and not, to be straight up, Chris.
I don't even think it's the Rams game. I mean, like, this team was better than they finished.
Sure.
I mean, like, there's enough pieces. When you look outside, some of these guys that got outside are pretty good. Alvin Kamara, who, obviously is a big part of that offense, wasn't always out there. But when you look at that offense too, when they played the Rams, I thought Morris did a really good job of taking Kamara out of the routes. So like they would put a blitzer to his side in protection, knowing that he's going to be over there because he's opposite Aaron Donald and the slide's going that way. And they would occupy Alvin, and he was out on like 12% of routes. And you look at what that offense looks like without Alvin. Now yesterday they put up a bunch of points, but I think they got a lot to fix there. So whether that's Dennis, whether that's the head coach, whether it's Carmichael, like, they've got to make some changes schematically in that building.
Chris, I would ask you who's on, but I can do tomorrow night, by the way, Eastern time, if that's what you're doing. Oh, cool.
That's great. Yeah. That's good news.
I'm in. I know you were texting, and I don't usually use our real estate for this sort of behind the scenes stuff, but early evening Eastern time, I'm in for you.
We got a commitment. We got a live verbal commitment.
You got it. Yeah, I can't go back. I can't go back.
Some NIL money.
Although if Michigan, if Michigan loses tonight, I'm going on a darkness retreat. So I don't know where.
That's kind of part of why I scheduled you, because it's going to be good either way.
Chris, you're the best, man. We'll chat tomorrow night. We'll chat Tuesday night.
Easy,
that's right. There you go. I'm committed to the Green Light with Chris Long podcast tomorrow night.
Nice. Look at you.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.